Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Charles Haanel. This is the Master Key System, Part 11. We are reading and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everyone, but some people seem to find enjoyment in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there are several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material so that you can get a better understanding of me and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of the Master Key System with Part 11. This part tells of the means by which we have discovered that the infinitely small as well as the infinitely large is, in the last analysis, nothing but force, motion, life and mind. It tells of the process by which we have become familiar with the vast organization by which we are identified with the complex operations of nature. It gives concise directions for making use of the creative power of the universe, the power by which all things are brought into existence. It shows how this marvelous power may be utilized, directed, and made available for the solution of every human problem. This will be interesting because I have already done that several times in this particular series and many times in the Infinite Integration System. So we are going to see what he says. Introduction, Part 11. Your life is governed by law, an actual, immutable principles that never vary. Law is in operation at all time in all places. There are 8 laws of creation. You should familiarize yourself with them before you attempt any type of manifestation. Fixed laws underlie all human actions. For this reason, men who control giant industries are enabled to determine with absolute precision just what percentage of every 100,000 people will respond to any given set of conditions. It is well, however, to remember that while every effect is the result of a cause, the effect, in turn, becomes a cause, which creates other effects, which, in turn, create still other causes, so that when you put the law of attraction into operation, you must remember that you are starting a train of causation, for good or otherwise, which may have endless possibilities. We frequently hear it said, "A very distressing situation came into my life which could not have been the result of my thought," as I certainly never entertained any thought which could have a result. We fail to remember that like attracts like in the mental world, and that the thought which we entertain brings to us certain friendships, companionships of a particular kind, and these, in turn, bring about conditions and environment, which in turn are responsible for the conditions of which we complain. That is mostly true. Part 11. Inductive reasoning is the process of the objective mind by which we compare a number of separate instances with one another until we see the common factor that gives rise to them all. Induction proceeds by comparison of facts. It is this method of studying nature which has resulted in the discovery of a reign of law which has marked an epoch in human progress. It is the dividing line between superstition and intelligence. It has eliminated the elements of uncertainty and caprice from men's lives and substituted law, reason, and certitude. It is the watchman at the gate mentioned in the former part. When, by virtue of this principle, the world to which the senses were accustomed has been revolutionized. When the sun has been arrested in his course, the apparently flat earth has been shaped into a ball and set whirling around him. When the inert matter has been resolved into active elements, and the universe presents itself, whenever we direct the telescope and microscope, full of force, motion, and life, we are constrained to ask by what possible means the delicate forms of organization in the midst of it are kept in order and repair. There are still people who believe that the earth is flat. Now, he is telling you now that it is not, right? It is shaped into a ball and set whirling around the sun. There are still people who believe the earth is flat, and that is wild to me. Like, you can literally go out and do the experiments yourself. It is not that difficult. You can measure the difference between the shadow types, right? There are various things that you can do to prove it to yourself. You don't have to rely upon anyone else. Me personally, I have seen the curvature of the earth, so I know what is up. And so it amuses me when people are like, oh, it's a flat earth, there's a firmament, there's some dome stuck over the top of the earth, you can't launch a satellite. Hold on, let me check my GPS and see where I'm at. It's wild. It's really wild. Or we could call the moon. Like, do you not understand how telecommunications work at all? Right? Okay, whatever. We got to have these towers and I can't get service, but he could call the moon. Yeah, it's a straight shot, buddy. You shoot a beam in that direction and it goes directly to them. It's not hard to figure out. Sorry, I don't mean to make fun of you. Like poles and like forces repel themselves or remain impenetrable to each other. And this cause seems, in general, sufficient to assign a proper place and distance to stars, men, and forces. As men of different virtues enter into partnership, so do opposite poles attract each other. Elements that have no property in common, like acids and gases, cling to each other in preference, and a general exchange is kept up between the surplus and the demand. Okay, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of chemistry. A gas is a state of being, right? You have solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. That is the 4 states of existence. Everything is one of those things. Acids are a completely separate thing from gases. And so you can have acidic gases. You can have basic gases. These things do exist. Hydrogen chloride, that is something that can be vaporized, right? Again, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what chemistry is and how it works. As the eye seeks and receives satisfaction from colors complementary to those which are given, so do need, want, and desire, in the largest sense, induce, guide, and determine action. It is our privilege to become conscious of the principle and act in accordance with it. Cuvier sees a tooth belonging to an extinct race of animals. This tooth wants a body for the performance of its function, and it defines the peculiar body it stands in need of with such precision that Cuvier is able to reconstruct the frame of this animal. You can probably get a close approximation, right? A molar is going to be a little bit harder, right? The molars are something that we have in common with most of the animals. They vary a little bit in shape and dimension, but they serve the same function. I find it really hard to believe that you can extrapolate from a tooth with no prior knowledge, right? What animal it belongs to and just say, yes, this has to go into an animal that looks like this and then draw it out, right? I find that extremely hard to, like, you can say, yes, this is a canine incisor, right? You can say this is a dog tooth or whatever, but to discriminate between, this dog's tooth and this dog's tooth is going to be a little bit difficult. And even like between this dog's tooth and a wolf, it's going to be a little bit difficult. They are not the same, granted, but if you had no frame of reference for the difference between this dog and a wolf, seeing the canine that came out of this dog, you might think it was a wolf. People make mistakes like that all of the time, and this is something that is a little bit beyond my ability to just accept on the face, right? Not that you can't, if you have a technical knowledge of bones, see a tooth and then place that, right? If that is your job and you have spent time studying the difference between the bones, then you can probably do that. But me, as a lay person, would have a very hard time distinguishing between this bone and this bone. Perturbations are observed in the motions of Uranus. Adams and Leverrier need another star at a certain place to keep the solar system in order, and Neptune appears in the place and at the hour appointed. The instinctive wants of the animals another star and you're saying Neptune is a star? Like there's a little bit wild in this one. The instinctive wants of the animal and the intellectual wants of Cuvier, the wants of nature and the minds of Leverrier and Adams were alike, and thus the results. Here, the thoughts of an existence, there, an existence, a well-defined, lawful want, therefore, furnishes the reason for the more complex operations of nature. Having recorded correctly the answers furnished by nature and stretched our senses with the growing science over her surface, having joined hands with the levers that move the earth, we become conscious of such a close, varied, and deep contact with the world without, that our wants and purposes become no less identified with the harmonious operations of this vast organization than the life, liberty, and happiness of the citizen are identified with the existence of his government. As the interests of the individual are protected by the arms of the country, added to his own, and his needs produce certain supply in the degree that they are felt more universally and steadily, in the same manner does conscious citizenship in the kingdom of nature secure us from the annoyances of subordinate agents by our alliance with superior powers, and by our conformity with the fundamental laws of resistance or inducement offered to mechanical or chemical agents, we distribute the labor to be performed between them and man to the best advantage of inventor and user. If Plato could have witnessed the pictures executed by the sun with the assistance of the photographer, or 100 similar illustrations of what man does by induction, he would perhaps have been reminded of the intellectual midwifery of his master, and in his own mind might have arisen the vision of a land where all manual, mechanical labor and repetition is assigned to the power of nature, where our wants are satisfied by purely mental operations set in motion by the will, and where the supply is created by the demand. That is a wild extrapolation, right? Understanding science is important, and it has allowed us to have great advances, right? We have tractors that can till large areas of land where you used to have to walk behind a mule and push a plow. That was difficult. That was a hard work, and so the advancement is great. But to think that you were going to just pull something out of nothing, like that's what I'm getting from this, right? Where our wants are satisfied by purely mental operations, that's never going to happen. You can create abundance in your life through the things that we talk about here, but they require you to invest in them. There has to be some forward motion on your own in order for the returns to come to you. If you invest no energy, then no energy is returned, and just thinking about it is not enough. Turning your mind to positive thoughts, while extremely handy, is not enough. You will never produce abundance in your life by sitting around and thinking about it. You have to till, you have to tend the garden, you have to pick the fruit, you have to store the food. That's where abundance comes from actually investing yourself into the vision that you hold for yourself. And so, yeah. However distant that land may appear, induction has taught men to make strides towards it, and has surrounded him with benefits which are, at the same time, rewards for past fidelity and incentives for more assiduous devotion. Induction is also an aid in concentrating and strengthening our faculties for the remainder of the journey, giving unerring solutions for individual as well as universal problems, by the mere operations of mind in the purest form. Here we find a method, the spirit of which is to believe what is sought has been accomplished in order to accomplish it. A method bequeathed upon us by the same Plato who, outside of this sphere, could never find how the ideas became realities. This conception is also elaborated by Swedenborg in his doctrine of correspondences. And a still greater teacher has said, "What things soever ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." Mark 11:24. The differences of the tenses in this passage is remarkable. Yes, you should have confidence in the things which you are doing will bear fruit, but you have to be doing them, right? You cannot just pray and expect it to happen. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't. It does not matter if it is something as simple as let my lights come on. There has to be an action. You have to flip the switch. Right? It is beyond foolish to believe that anything is going to be purely mental. That is a fallacy. This is seeming to reinforce that fallacy, and that is going to cause a complete dismissal. We are first to believe that our desire has already been fulfilled. Its accomplishment will then follow. And you should be confident that the thing which you are doing will produce the works that you want. Right? That is true. This is a concise direction for making use of the creative power of thought by impressing on the universal subjective mind the particular thing which we desire as an already existing fact. We are thus thinking on the plane of the absolute and eliminating all consideration of conditions or limitation, and are planting a seed, which, if left undisturbed, will finally germinate into external fruition. To review, inductive reasoning is the process of the objective mind, by which we compare a number of separate instances with one another until we see the common factor that gives rise to them all. We see people in every civilized country on the globe securing results by some process which they do not seem to understand themselves, and to which they usually attach more or less mystery. Our reason is given to us for the purpose of ascertaining the law by which these results are accomplished. The operation of this thought process is seen in these fortunate natures that possess everything that others must acquire by toil, who never have a struggle with conscience because they always act correctly and never comport themselves otherwise than with tact, learn everything easily, complete everything they begin with a happy knack, live in eternal harmony with themselves without ever reflecting much what they do or ever experiencing difficulty or toil. Who? Name one. Give me one example of someone who has done this, right? That is not true, right? There are people who say this all of the time. Well, he was born with a silver spoon. He inherited his daddy's money. And yes, that is true. Some people do inherit money, right? But if you do not use that money in a fruitful way, it will disappear, right? You can get that through inheritance, but you are not going to create that in your own life by just believing it, just thinking it. You have to take the action. If there is no action, there is no result. Period. Outside of divine intervention, which is exceedingly rare, right? There is very few things that you can point to that are absolutely just divinely intervened. Somebody just randomly receives. Can you pray that you need this need met right now? And it happened. Yes, that can happen. But again, that is exceedingly rare. I don't discount faith, right? I don't. I have been provided for in places where I needed it. But I was making actions, right? Even when the provision came from nowhere, right? From the place I was not investing my energy. When I needed my bills paid, when I was injured or homeless, which happened a couple of times, I was still working on something to try to make money. And then the provision came from an alternative source, but I was still investing my energy towards paying my own bills. All right, it was not just sitting around. It was not just praying, and it never has been. There are instances where something unusual has happened, right? When there is an accident and somebody is pinned under a car and somehow this person is able to pick it up. They're still expending the energy. They're putting the faith into them picking it up is going to lift the car. That is still an action. It's divine intervention through you. Whenever you are making the prayers and you tell somebody about a need, that is putting an action in. When you tell that person about a need and you are taking actions and they see that you're taking actions, then they try to help fulfill that need. That is most often how the prayer is fulfilled. That is, the divine using the mortal to accomplish the ends therein. I want to stress it because if you are just sitting around waiting for something to happen, it will not. You will be disappointed. Almost certainly. And this chapter is hard. The fruit of this thought is because it's like the reasoning is not, it doesn't make sense, right? Yes, inductive reasoning is a thing, but that doesn't mean the rest of this. The fruit of this thought is, as it were, a gift of the gods, but a gift which few as yet realize, appreciate, or understand. The recognition of the marvelous power which is possessed by the mind under proper conditions, and the fact that this power can be utilized, directed, and made available for the solution of every human problem is of transcendental importance. All truth is the same, whether stated in modern scientific terms or in the language of apostolic times. There are timid souls who fail to realize that the very completeness of truth requires various statement, that no one human formula will show every side of it. Change, emphasis, new language, novel interpretations, unfamiliar perspectives are not, as some suppose, signs of departure from truth. But on the contrary, they are evidence that the truth is being apprehended in new revelations to human needs and is becoming more generally understood. See the Unconventional Bible Study. The truth must be told to each generation and to every people in new and different terms, so that when the great teacher said, "Believe that ye receive, and ye shall receive," or when Paul said, "Faith is the substance of things not seen," or when the modern science says, "The law of attraction is that law by which thought correlates with its object." That is not the law of attraction. Each statement, when subjected to analysis, is found to contain exactly the same truth, the only difference being in the form of presentation. And I want to point out once again that Paul is no one to listen to. We are standing on the threshold of a new era. The time has arrived when man has learned the secrets of mastery, and the way is being prepared for a new social order, more wonderful than anything ever heretofore dreamed of. The conflict of modern science with theology, the study of comparative religions, the tremendous power of new social movements. All of these are but clearing the way for the new order. They may have destroyed traditional forms which have become antiquated and impotent, but nothing of value has been lost. And again, I refer you to the Unconventional Bible Study. A new faith has been born. A faith which demands a new form of expression, and this faith is taking form in a deep consciousness of power, which is being manifested in the present spiritual activity found on every hand. The spirit, which sleeps in the mineral, breathes in the vegetable, moves in the animal, and reaches its highest development in man, is the universal mind, and it behooves us to span the gulf between being and doing, theory and practice, by demonstrating our understanding of the dominion which we have been given. This is in part true, right? We have talked about the theory of spiritual evolution and how the mineral is incorporated into the vegetable, which is then incorporated into the animal, which is then incorporated into the human. And then there are a couple of different ones beyond us. We are not the highest there. We're not even the closest to the highest. By far, the greatest discovery of all the centuries is the power of thought. The importance of this discovery has been a little slow in reaching the general consciousness, but it has arrived. And already in every field of research, the importance of this greatest of all discoveries is being demonstrated. That is the difference between the third and the fourth dimension, and the fourth and the fifth dimension, which we reside in. You ask, and what does the creative power of thought consist? It consists in creating ideas, and those, in turn, objectify themselves by appropriating, inventing, observing, discerning, discovering, analyzing, ruling, governing, combining, and applying matter and force. It can do this because it is an intelligent creative power. Thought reaches its loftiest activity when plunged into its own mysterious depth. when it breaks through the narrow compass of self and passes from truth to the region of eternal light, where all which is or was or ever will be melt into one grand harmony. From this process of self-contemplation comes inspiration, which is creative intelligence, and which is undeniably superior to every element, force, or law of nature, because it can understand, modify, govern, and apply them to its own ends and purposes, and therefore possess them. That is not entirely untrue, but it is not, right? There's a lot here, and I am reticent to speak upon it because it is so very misconstrued that, like, yeah. You are not, right? You do get to control the direction in which you are going, but there are immutable laws which are in place. There are 8 laws of creation which you can utilize, but which are active whether or not you utilize them. You can turn them towards your own ends and purposes and therefore possess them, but even if you understand them, you can still be harmed by them. And by harmed, I mean unintentional consequences because you were unintentionally misaligned with them. The creative intelligence is true. You do get to choose your direction. You get to say A or B repeatedly throughout the day. Eggs or cereal, right? Go to work or don't. All of these things are choices that you can make, and they unfold your reality in the direction in which you are placing it. But you cannot fundamentally change the material things which are. You can call to you things which are, and they will materialize for you eventually, right? The prayers for abundance will bring abundance, but you have to be investing energy into something that might bring you abundance. Even if the abundance comes from somewhere else, you are still progressing forward in your search for. But you can't just believe that this wall is going to disappear and then it will disappear, right? If this wall is blocking my way, I cannot just and make it go away. You have to go and get a sledgehammer and start breaking it apart. You have to get saws and cut things out. You have to reshape and remold according to your desires. You are not going to just call something from nothing. It will not happen. Doesn't matter how much energy you invest mentally. If you are not physically doing something to create the betterment, it is not going to happen. Even if it's not me going directly to the wall, right? I can go hire a contractor that is taking a step. They can come in with the tools and take care of that problem. That is not me doing it. That is me materializing it. It is me putting forth the action to achieve what needs to be achieved. There are things that are beyond explanation, right? The fact that I have healed myself in very real ways is something that is beyond my ability really to tell you. I can tell you the processes by which I have done it: prayer, fasting, and meditation, the moving of the light through the stack, sitting it where it needs to be, applying the intentionality, which are all investing energy. But I didn't actually make the thing disappear. I just assisted it in achieving what needed to be doing by investing my energy in it. That is an important distinction, right? If you are expecting something from nothing, it will not happen. It will not happen. It will not happen. Wisdom begins with the dawn of reason, and reason is but an understanding of the knowledge and principles whereby we may know the true meaning of things. Wisdom, then, is illuminated reason, and this wisdom leads to humility, for humility is a large part of wisdom. Wisdom is the application of understanding, right? Wisdom is, I have learned this fact, and then here is how it is applied. Knowing the fact is not enough. The application is the wisdom. The ability to learn is intelligence, right? The capacity to onboard these things is intelligence. But you can be intelligent and not wise. We see that all of the time, right? There are a lot of people who are really smart, but cannot apply the things in the correct manner. Wisdom is the application of intelligence. That is the distinction there. Knowing the correct action to take because of the things that you have learned is wisdom. So, humility, while useful, is not necessarily a part of wisdom. Humility can come from wisdom because you can apply the intelligence as it need be to shut up, right? That is humility. The understanding that you can be corrected, that is humility. But that is not a necessary component. Right? We all know many who have achieved this seemingly impossible, who have realized lifelong dreams, who have changed everything, including themselves. I bet they didn't do it just sitting on their ass, though. We have sometimes marveled at the demonstration of an apparently irresistible power, which seemed to be ever available just when it was most needed. But it is all clear now. All that is required is an understanding of certain, definite, fundamental principles and their proper application. That proper application will bite you in the ass. For your next exercise, concentrate on the quotation taken from the Bible. Whatsoever things ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. Notice that there is no limitation. Whatsoever things is very definite and implies that the only limitation which is placed upon us is our ability to think, to be equal to the occasion, to rise to the emergency, to remember that faith is not a shadow, but a substance, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I haven't dove in very hard on this particular study on some of the things that I talk about in the Unconventional Bible Study. There are things that are recorded that are patently untrue in the Bible. I have 161 videos where we detail a lot of those. We went through the entirety of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, 1st and 2nd Kings, and Chronicles. We went through most of the prophets, not all of them. We dealt with large sections of the New Testament, but not all of it. The reasons we didn't do all of it was for very, very good reasons. Paul is nobody to listen to. Paul has the exact same authority that I do, a direct revelation, but he was not an apostle of Jesus. He never physically met Jesus. You can take his account that he was stricken on the road and he went and was healed. That doesn't necessarily mean it was Jesus that did that. He was in direct opposition to all 11 of the surviving apostles who actually studied at the feet of Jesus. He was in direct opposition to that. It is not explicitly stated in the text, but it is definitely implied all the way through the from Acts forward. Paul had nothing to do with the teachings of Jesus. He was antithetical to several of them. And so we didn't deal with Paul at all. We talked about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and how those accounts were almost certainly well after the death of Christ and most likely the death of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Paul, or Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We talked about how they were tailor-made for different sections of the world, right? You had Egypt, Ethiopia, Greece, and Turkey. Now, they didn't have them names necessarily, but some of them did. And that the message in each one of those was tailored for the particular region in which they were living. The differences between them can be traced directly back to the needs to convince these people that this is true and to convince these people that this other thing is true. The focus has a lot to do with that. How it was defined and the things that were talked about had a lot to do with that. The things which Jesus told you to do, right, were misconstrued in several cases. I point this out so that you know, yes, you should desire, you should pray, but you will not receive them without energy being expended. I don't care who told you that. I don't care whose toes it steps on to tell you that. You will receive nothing if you do not invest. Nothing. You will not receive returns if there is not energy invested. It is a fundamental law of creation. There are 8 of them. They are how this actually works. I can say that with authority because I have used them in my life to physically change myself, to heal myself in at least 2 places, right? This is something that I have done, not something that I speculate about, not something that I heard somebody else talk about, not something that I read somewhere, is not something that is a rumor. This is something I have done in my life. I have the literal results. I can literally talk because of the things that I am telling you. If this comes off condescending, I am sorry, but I am hammering this point home because this entire freaking section is telling you something that is not true. This is why it has not worked for people, right? If the master key system worked in the way which it was written, everybody would use it. Everybody would see the results. Everybody would have the harvest. This particular chapter is limiting you. You cannot just think it. You cannot just believe it. Now, can you have faith the size of a mustard seed and change things in your life? Yes, but it requires you to do something. It is not just by thinking about it. It never will be. Can things happen? Yes. Miraculous circumstances can come about, right? There can be a dire need and you can invest in that, right? If you are trying to make this change, that is an energetic investment. So, thoughtful, harmonious prayer applied in earnest is an energetic investment. But just saying it and believing it is not going to make it true. There has to be the energetic investment. Prayer, fasting, and meditation are energetic investments, right? But by themselves, generally speaking, they will not be enough. You have to plan the direction. You have to start acting on the direction. And if you do not, it will not happen. Almost every time. Are there exceptions to the rule? Absolutely. But they are few, exceedingly rare. Part 11. Questions. What is inductive reasoning? It is the process of the objective mind by which we compare a number of separate instances with each other until we see the common factor which gives rise to them all. What has this method of studying accomplished? It has resulted in the discovery of a reign of law which has marked an epoch in human progress. What is it that guides and determines action? It is need, want, and desire, which in the largest sense induce, guide, and determine action. What is the formula for the unerring solution of every individual problem? We are to believe that our desire has already been fulfilled. Its accomplishment will then follow if you are acting. What great teachers advocated it? Jesus, Plato, and Swedenborg. What is the result of this operation what is the result of the operation of this thought process? We are thinking on the plane of the absolute and planting a seed, which, if left undisturbed, will germinate into fruition. Right? But you have to water it, you have to fertilize it, you have to make sure that it gets the proper amounts of sunlight and room to grow. There are steps that you still have to take. You can overcrowd whenever you plant something and it will all die. Like, there are steps that have to be taken, and some of them are physical. Why is it scientifically exact? Because it is natural law. See the 8 laws of creation. What is faith? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. What is the law of attraction? The law by which faith is brought into manifestation. And again, that is in part, right? The law of attraction states, all things of a similar nature will cluster. The like attracts like. So if you are focused on the positive and you are taking positive actions, then you will attract positive results. If you are thinking negative thoughts and taking negative actions, then negative things will return. If you are thinking negative thoughts and taking positive actions, it will confuse the law, and you will have mixed results. And the same for vice versa. Faith is brought into manifestation through proper application. The law of attraction states that like will attract like, and that things of a similar nature tend to cluster. What importance do you attach to an understanding of this law? It has eliminated the elements of uncertainty and caprice from men's lives and substituted law, reason, and certitude. Yeah, because that has happened. Death is but the natural process whereby all material forms are thrown into the crucible for reproduction in fresh diversity. And that is going to wrap up part 11. I have several issues with this one, right? He is not entirely wrong in this, right? Like, inductive reasoning is a thing. The ability to see similarities in patterns and to understand that the underlying fundamentals of that pattern are necessary is a large part of what I do. You cannot take away from the action. Even devout prayers is an action, and that is not going to be enough most of the time. I do not discount divine intervention in things because I have been divinely intervened, right? If you don't know, I tried to start a shotgun. I pulled the trigger 3 times and I got 3 misfires. I consider that divine intervention, and I was not praying for that. So I do not discount divine intervention. The healing that I have is through divine intervention, but the placement of it there was by divine intervention too. You don't really get to control divine intervention. You do have a measure of control of your life. You get to make the decisions by which the results will come. You get to decide the direction in which you are going to go. You get the A, B choices all of the time. And sometimes it is A, B, C, D, E, and there are 5 choices, right? But you still get the freedom to choose that. You get to decide this is the most positive of the choices, and this is the one I'm going to pursue. You have to put in the work. If you are not investing work into your life, you will not achieve anything, right? I am building a video game. If I do not put in the work, it will never come to fruition, no matter how much I pray about it. I have a YouTube channel, and no matter how much I pray about it, if I am not here putting in the work, it's not going to do anything. Sometimes it is out of my hands. Sometimes the algorithm does what it's going to do, despite the fact that I pray for growth. Right? I pray for the crew. I pray for the fullness of the crew every day within the timing of the Lord. Right? I am out here praying for the betterment of all humanity every single day. Am I getting those results immediately? No. Do I see signs of change? Absolutely. I am putting in the energy. You have to put in the energy. Taking the time for prayer, fasting, and meditation is putting in energy. It is devoting your energy towards the target. But it is almost certainly not going to be enough for anything outside of what I've done in healing, right? Like, there was nothing external that I could do for my throat. I could go to the doctor and I could have had them take care of that, but I was told not to do that. I was told to wait until these effects happened. My wife did not believe that these effects would ever happen. She didn't believe that she believed that until I went to the doctor, I wasn't going to be able to talk. And she was perfectly willing to put up with my hard-headed ass telling her that that was not what was going to happen. That I was not going to the doctor. That I was going to wait until God removed this thing from my throat. But I prayed for it. It took me time to understand that I had to pray for healing for myself. It was a full decade before I even began to pray for healing in myself. I didn't feel like I was worthy. And so I received 0 healing. Once I have started investing in my healing through prayer and through works, I am seeing the benefits thereof. There is no reason to expect any return if you are not putting anything in. And you can say an arbitrary prayer, right? You cannot invest the energy and still pray. You can say something by rote, like if you say what now I lay me down to sleep, pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. That prayer has no power if you were just repeating what someone else said. But if you invest the power into it, then it becomes something real. It is the same for manifestation, right? Manifestation happens. That is a real thing. You see the results. But it doesn't happen just by itself. You have to invest. You cannot expect your life to change if you are not putting in the work to change your life. You cannot expect to get over depression if you are picking up the same problems that you had 6 months ago. You cannot expect to get over anxiety if you are going to continuously choose to worry about tomorrow instead of seizing the opportunities of today. You will not get a better job if you don't go look for one. You will not get wealth if you are not putting energy into it. You will not receive unless you expend. It is the law of returns. It is the fundamental law of creation. Right? There are 8 laws to creation. They work, whether or not you intend them to. And if you are misaligned with that, as he is in this, you will not see the results. That is the reason why this has not taken off in the way that it should. Right? That is why it has been rewritten a couple of times. That's why Napoleon Hill took it and did his own thing with it. And that's why The Secret took it and did their own thing with it. Because if it worked as written, it would work. People would be using it. You would see the results. Now, do I doubt that some people have received results from this? Absolutely not. They put in the work. Right? It is not just mental. That is my point here, right? Not that this doesn't work at all, just that it is missing a key component. The actual investment of the electromagnetic forces of creation, the Holy Spirit. That is missing from this. The actually using of the energy. And that's where I'm going to wrap this one up. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to something that I disagree with in large part, right? Like, not all of it. There are truths contained in here, just like in the Bible. Despite the best efforts of men, the truth comes through. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree. As long as it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if there is something along these lines that you would like to see me expound upon, let me know in the comments down below as well. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs and that I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but I do not apologize for it. I'm here to show you how to do this in the way that I have done this. When I disagree, it is through experience. It is not arbitrary. Even if it is merely a difference in definition, if I am pointing it out, that definition makes a difference. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.